So Mark Staten, Missions Director. Most of you know me. I'm getting most of the names down. It'll take me just a little bit of time. Welcome. We're thankful you're here. I want to tell you a little bit about this program that we're offering to you on first and third Thursdays. That's my job, and then Johnny's going to teach a little Adulting 101. Okay? If you have any questions at the end, or if you have anything like your license plate number that you haven't given to us, or social security number, you can talk to Laura upstairs or get that to me also so that we have that. Just don't forget about those things. I have a question. How many of you received a text yesterday about this? Good. I'm just trying to figure out if that's working or not. So some of you two won't because you weren't in the system until today, right? But I'm just trying to figure out if that's a great way to converse with you. Okay. I'm ready, Kiefer, whenever you are. So what T2WF is our transition to workforce. What we found out after 6 years of being here, and then me being here 2 years, is that our employers, the people that we're trying to get you ready for, they have some situations where the employees are not up to code on some things. It's not their welding. Their welding is really good. It's not their bedside manner or nursing. That's good because that's been taught here. It's showing up on time. It's filling out the paperwork correctly. It's filling out the paperwork so that you can read it, those kinds of things. So we had a group get together, and we decided we would do some of these essential skills, quick little lessons for you. Maybe now you're ready for it. Maybe you haven't been taught. Maybe you have been taught. I was a school teacher, so a lot of times you've been taught, you just didn't listen. Right, Tian? Yeah, I was his teacher, so I can say that about him. But maybe you just weren't ready for it. So we're hopefully this will help. We want every single student to be a success and as prepared as possible for the workforce after their time here. That's our whole goal. We want you to be successful because then we look good, right? Okay. You can interact with me too. You can talk. I want you to. Okay. So what I did was our expectations for this class, I have about 7 of them. Tried to keep it as minimal as possible so that you can, we don't want to be tough. We don't want it to be a lot of extra work, those kinds of things. Let me go through it. So the first one, each student will attend the 16 different the 16 T2WF classes, either in person at 9 o'clock, or, and I was telling Jacob, can I pick on you? Is that okay? So Jacob is an afternoon student, but he came this morning at 9 o'clock. That's pretty darn cool, right? That says a lot about him. So in my book, and everyone who's here, I've said head shaking back there like, Jacob gets a point in that column because he came and he didn't have to be here. So if he can't, and I talked to him about this just now, then we can Zoom it. So we're going to have 8 culinary students in Shenandoah that they'll probably Zoom in with us starting next week. So they can Zoom it. And then you can also, so we also have HVAC and we have wind and we have people in the afternoon welding and those kinds of things who aren't going to be here at 9 o'clock because they work or they don't have time or whatever. They can watch it. We're taping it right now. They can watch it. They're still held accountable to watch it. You are too. You're still held accountable to watch it and do the homework. And the homework is going to be like, you guys have been in school lately, an exit ticket. You're going to have to answer 3 questions. You're going to have to email me. You're going to have to do something really easy, and you're done. And you get credit for it. It's nothing's going to take you, if it takes you more than 30 minutes, it's wrong, right? If you're working on it for 30 minutes and you can't get it figured out, after 15, you call me and say, hey, Mark, I'm having trouble. You got to help me do this. The assignments are supposed to be, they're going to be hands-on so that you can actually use it in real life. So the resume. In January, we'll be doing a resume. My daughter comes up from Lenexa. She's going to help every student here have a resume. And Ashley's going to say, you did it last year, right? Ashley's going to say, well, I already had my resume done. Well, have you added anything to it since last January? I told you I was going to use you. So she needs to add those things that she has added since that time. 5 minutes, done. You have a resume ready to go. Does that make sense to everyone? We want it to be helpful to you guys. If choosing to watch the video, it must be viewed and the assignments must be completed within the 3 days by that following Sunday evening. That's pretty typical with even college life or anything. Give you 3 days. If you have an assignment, it's not due till that Sunday evening. If you don't get it turned in, you don't get credit for being here that day, that time. okay? I mean, part of it is we're trying to get you to follow directions and be on time. If you have a question of any of these, stop me and I'll go back. To receive certification, a student must attend all 16 classes, see above, right? So Bella, let's say that you're gone on a day for cross country. You're not here. You need to go to cross country. I want you to. Watch the video, do it later on, and be done. If you don't have my email, get it. If you don't have my phone number to text me, get it. That's how we communicate the best. That's how I communicated with you yesterday to get you here, right, Christian? Excellent. It's the way of the world. You have to. So get it and text me. Tori's been emailing me. Some of you are doing a good job of that. That's communication. That's going to be one of our classes coming up. All adult students. So here's the deal. So you probably know this if you went to orientation. Anyone who's still in high school, okay, you're a concurrent student, is what we call you here. Anyone who is out of high school is an adult. Does it make sense? Okay? All adult students who attend all 16 classes at the end will earn $200 back to pay on their tuition. You won't have to pay that. And all concurrent students who attend all 16, and I try to put them all in there, you'll get a $50 gift certificate for something here in the county. Some sort of reward to have you do that. Questions so far? Yes?
Those that are being paid for by Oak Rehab,
Yes. Yes.
fall into the 10%.
I forgot about that. I just didn't. If you, I'm going to pick on Brant. Is that okay, Brant? You're covered by that.
Yeah.
You'll get the $50 gift certificate. I knew you'd like that. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Remember, we're learning too. Beep. When I was in school, in the library, we had a slideshow and a tape recorder, and whenever the tape recorder would beep, then you'd have to flip the slideshow to the next slide. Remember that? Okay. Number 4, all classes will be on the first and third Thursdays, except for March because of spring break. And it's, mark your calendars now, get it on there. There is a Tarkio Tech student calendar that we keep up on our website. Has it on there. So get on our website and find that calendar, it's on there. Use it. I will try to post things in the lobby upstairs too and text you. There will be short real-world assignments with most lessons. If these lessons are not completed by the deadline, you will not be eligible for the incentive previously mentioned. I kind of said that already. We do expect respect and common courtesy for our guest instructors and speakers. They're volunteering their time. So in 2 weeks, I'm not going to be able to be here because I'm going to be visiting a school. Someone will be here. Some of our people will be here. We have guest speakers from here in Tarkio who are, one's from the hospital, one and her husband is a farmer, okay? They're going to be presenting the lesson. Respect them. They're giving their time to be here. So I expect that, right? I think you know that, but that's another thing we're trying to teach as well. Tian, respect me. I know. Here's my life, and this is how I taught school. Any of my students who are here will tell you this is how I said it. You do everything you do with a positive attitude. Positive attitude. Is that right, girls? You're shaking your head. You've heard me say it before, right? Yeah. Life's tough, but positive attitude will make a lot of things different. We are all learning new lessons every day, me included. Always remember that the contacts you make today could result in future opportunities. Make a good impression. I want to tell you a real quick story, and then I'll shut up, I promise. Had a student in welding this summer. Don't listen. Didn't always go to class. Did get certification, did pass. Texted me yesterday in the middle of all this hullabaloo, getting students started, and said, I can't get a job. Can you help me find a job? I said, sure, but I can't today. We'll work on that, right? But I wanted to say, he said, such and such company, they won't call me back. And I just wondered if that attendance during the summer doesn't come back to bite him in the butt. Right? What am I going to say if I call someplace and say, well, he attended 75% of the classes this summer. Not going to want to hire him, guys. I love the kid. I want him to succeed, but I'm not going to lie for you. I'm the wrong person for that. And I know We're just not going to do that. That's real world. That's yesterday. Can I get him a job? I don't know. I'm going to try everything we can to do it. But that's what I'm saying. Every contact you make might be your next employer. I never thought Christy and I'd be working together. I taught her kids. Never dreamed it. They probably someone's going like, oh, please don't let them be together. Okay, Kiefer, sorry. Here's my contact information. My cards are on the table with Sandra. Please come up with us. Come upstairs and come in to see us. We're going to have coffee bar Thursdays, like every other Tuesday, excuse me. Come in and get that, water bottles, whatever it is. Okay? And our president, Johnny Davis, is going to do Adulting 101. So welcome him, please. I didn't turn it off. Okay? I did spit in the microphone.
I will also. Let me get this adjusted and on. While I'm doing that, I'll tell you stories too. Mark and I are really good at telling stories. One of the things, a little bit about me, I was a high school counselor for, oh my gosh, 45 years. So a long time. I was at Shenandoah for 8 years, I think, back in the early 2000s, and enjoyed it very much. So I know first graduation we had here, I had some people come up to me, some adults, and said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, "No," and because you change a lot after you get out of high school. And they introduced themselves, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I do remember you. I just didn't recognize you." And now I have your children that are down here at Tarkio Tech. That's really neat. But one thing I want you to remember, and this isn't the lesson on attendance, but it really made a big impression on me. In my 45 years of counseling, I would get referral forms for students who graduated and were wanting to get hired by different companies around the community. And it might be companies like Lyle's, it might be companies like Kawasaki, Eaton's when they were in business. It might be little companies downtown. They always had one question on there. They had other questions sometimes. They had 2 or 3. It wasn't a lot. Probably surprise you if you're in high school, thinking that, I wonder what they do when you apply for a job. Well, they do send those out to your high school because at that point, that's basically the only frame of references. Now, you're also going to find out that as you go along, your high school is going to depend less and less on your success. Your previous job is what they're going to want to know about. But they always had one question on there, and it wasn't, what was their grade point? Surprised? Yeah, maybe. It was very simply, what was their attendance? Sometimes it would say, what was their attendance their senior year? Sometimes it would say, what was their attendance their junior and senior year? A lot of times they didn't want to know for your whole high school career, but most recent attendance. That's the only question that was on every one of those applications. Sometimes they'd ask, was this a good citizen? Sometimes they would say, were they involved in other activities? But that was not on all of them. In fact, it was probably on few of them at a time. Why would that be the only question that was on every one of those applications? Because I heard this all the time from students. Oh yeah, well I know I don't come to class, but when I get a job, I'll go to my job. Do you think that's true? Otherwise, why would that be the one question they ask? Because they know what you did at your last experience, high school, that's what you'll do on the job. You'll say, well, yeah, but I'll enjoy doing what I'm doing. Doesn't matter. They know that that pattern has already been established. So attendance is critical. We're going to talk about adulting, and part of the reason we're doing this is because we are here for one reason and one reason only, and that is to get you prepared to go into your career field at an entry-level position. That's what we're here for. We're not here to prepare you for, some other some other career or some other job or some other education. You may want those, and hopefully you will go on at some point if that's what you need for your plans, for your pathway. But we're here to get you into the workforce. Now, we've kind of learned along the way that sometimes our students are not here for that. Because if you're in high school, you're kind of used to this whole process of filling a schedule. You know what I mean? Okay, well, I got this first period. Okay, I got to get something for fourth period. What do I want to take for fourth period? Well, what's my options? Well, I'll take that. Yeah, I call it the dartboard, scheduling. You just kind of throw a dart and see. Or it's the girlfriend scheduling. I'm going to take the class my girlfriend's taking. And my response to students that do that as a counselor was always, oh, okay. Well, does she make all your decisions for you or just this one? Get my point? You need to be doing what you're doing to get ready for your career, because your career is what's going to set the tone for your life. We hope that's why you're here. And so we hope that throughout the year you're constantly focused on what's coming next in terms of your career. The topic adulting, I think for some of you would probably be a turnoff. Anybody want to be honest and admit that? Adulting, I'm not sure I want to be an adult. I've seen adults, right? Yeah, I would have said that in high school. The last thing I want to be is an adult. I hope I never grow up. And my wife would tell you I haven't. But an adult has a lot of different meanings. Let's look at one of the meanings that an adult is. That's not it. You got to hit the forward button because I've got them. Yep. Nope, that's not it. Go back to the adulting and then the forward button. Is it there? Okay, well, I'll tell you what it is. This is the definition in the dictionary. A person who is fully grown or developed. Does that sound like an adult? Does that make sense? Yeah? Well, the problem with that is I know a lot of people who are fully grown and developed who have reached their majority age. They're 18 or 21 and above, and I don't think they're really much of an adult. They don't act like an adult. I had classmates that, died in their 60s, and I would say they never grew up. They never were an adult. They never behaved like an adult. So I don't like the idea of an adult being defined as an age or a period in their lifetime. I like the second definition much better. And it says a person who behaves in a way characteristic of a responsible individual, especially by accomplishing mundane but necessary tasks. Now, as a high school counselor, I heard throughout my life students that say, well, I do my thing. I do my thing, I don't just follow the crowd. I do my thing. Well, that's great as long as your thing accomplishes the goals that you have and makes you a successful person. But when your thing counters that, I don't think that's an adult. I think the key here is somebody that can do things, make themselves do things that they don't necessarily want to do, but need to do in order to accomplish their goals. I used to tell my students, I used to tell my children this, every day you should do something that you do not want to do or do not have to do. Now, my high school students would always come back with this, well, I'm here. Well, you have to be here. That doesn't count. And I even use food as an example. You say, well, I don't know, what can I do that I don't have to do, I don't want to do? I don't know, do you like beets? Eat some beets. You say, why? That's one time you can make yourself do something that you do not want to do or have to do. Or do you have to make your bed? Does your mom make you make your bed? No. Well, make your bed. Well, I don't want to. Okay, that's the point. You don't want to, you don't have to. Every day, make yourself do one thing at least, because that moves you along to that point where you can control yourself. So we're going to use this definition of a person who has characteristics of responsible behavior by accomplishing mundane but necessary task. Necessary task. Okay, Kiefer. There's a program, it's been around for a while. It's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this man by the name of Stephen Covey, he studied individuals, especially individuals who were successful in life. And not always just because they were popular. One good example of that is probably politicians. You know, I think some people would say, oh, politicians are a good example. Probably they're a bad example, because most of the time politicians are elected because of popularity. I used to get upset with my high school students because they would elect their student class president or their homecoming king or queen or whatever. And I'd look at them and think, well, that's not really a very good example of leadership, you know. Well, they're popular. And I think, well, that's not the way life is. But unfortunately, in politics, it is. We tend to elect people who are popular, not necessarily are successful in the sense of making themselves do the things that need to be done, even though they're mundane tasks. So he studied people that were successful, and he found out there were 7 different habits that these people developed throughout their lifetime that helped them to reach that level of success that they have. Sometimes that was related to money. Sometimes that wasn't related to money. It was related to accomplishments, to things that benefited mankind. But these 7 habits were common in all these people. Have any of you ever heard of this? 7 habits? Yeah, some of our older people. Well, we're going to go through those, and I'm going to challenge you to adopt these habits as part of your everyday routine here at Tarkio Tech and at your school or at your home. At the end, I've got little cards that just list these habits that you can. We'll give you one of those. They're laminated. You can maybe keep in your billfold or your purse. To every once in a while, maybe pull those out and kind of go through and say, how am I doing this? Am I doing this in my lifetime? Habit number 1 is called be proactive. Anybody want to take a shot at what proactive means? You can't be wrong. It's just your idea. I want to know what's going through your head. Yeah. Doing stuff. It is. It's doing stuff. Why? That's the key. Being proactive. Why do you do what you do? There's a purpose behind it. You know, being proactive is number 1. Number 2, beginning with the end in mind. Now, that ought to be a little bit easier. Anybody want to take a shot at that? Why are you here at Tarkio Tech? To get a job. There you go. And in your career field. So Brant's going to say, okay, what do I need to do? The end is I am done here, I am out, I am working and getting paid for what I've been trained to do. Okay, that's what you do. You start with that. And in order to accomplish that, what needs to happen between now and the end of this year? That is beginning with the end in mind, rather than just moving day to day, day to day, day to day, reacting to what's happening. Number 3, put first things first. Sigmund Freud talks about defense mechanisms, and he's got one that's called denial. Denial is when you don't actively say, well, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this. But it's when you subconsciously think, okay, I really need to do the laundry, but gee, I've been meaning to go through that tool drawer for a while, so I'm going to start going through that tool drawer. And you spend the whole day going through that tool drawer. And what happens at the end of the day? The laundry doesn't get done. Well, which was more important? Well, kind of that I get clothes to wear. Yeah. So it's putting first, deciding what is most important and starting with that, and then doing the other things as you go down that list. The least important things can wait. Put first things first. Number 4, think win-win. Anybody want to take a shot at that one? What does that mean? Think win-win. Yeah.
So both sides get something out of it.
Very good. It's when both parties get something out of that. So when you're dealing with a friend, when you're dealing with a parent, when you're dealing with an employer, and you're thinking, okay, I want to achieve this. Okay, what do they want? Well, they want you to contribute to the company, or they want you to make the company successful. Well, how can you achieve your goal at the same time achieve their goal? Look at both sides, not just your side of it. Because what happens is you start to develop a reputation to where people don't want you around. They want people that are also concerned about them. We'll talk more in detail about all of these. Number 5, seek to understand first before making yourself understood. So anybody ever have a conversation where it gets a little bit heated? Yeah? What are you thinking when that other person's talking? The conversation ends soon. Let's get this over with. You know, do any of you, again, you don't have to be honest, but if you will, do any of you, when you're listening to that other person, just start building your argument in your mind? We all do that. Well, that's not understanding where they're coming from. That's just understanding where you're coming from. That's not looking at the other possibilities. Number 6, learn to synergize. That's a fancy word. Anybody know what synergize means? Synergizing is when you take advantage of all the collective knowledge that is involved in a decision or in an issue. So as I stand here, you know, I have ideas, I have plans, I have things that I think will accomplish a task, but I have, what do I have, about 20 maybe? I have 20 people sitting here that also have ideas about how we can accomplish that task. Have you ever heard the saying, there's a right way and there's a wrong way? Yeah, actually there is a your way, and then there's a right way in between. My way is not necessarily right, your way is not necessarily right. It may be in between there. Synergizing is getting all those parties involved to where you can come up with the best solution to a situation, because somebody that you're working with has an idea, and your idea triggers a better idea. So it's not that you didn't have any input in that, it's that your input created a better idea in their mind that they were able to introduce. And when you have multiple people like this, you have a volume of possibilities for a better solution to a problem. That's synergizing. It's throwing an idea out, not to say, this is the way we have to do it, but to say, here's one idea. Do you have other ideas? Let's look at those. Let's come together on this. Because then they're going to come back with an idea that may help you think, oh yeah, well, that would be better. But you know what would even be better? If we took my idea and your idea and we did it this. That's kind of a combination. That's synergizing. It's pulling all of the ideas. It's pulling all of the thought and the common interest together. And number 8, and this is probably the one, or 7, you'll like this one the best, sharpen the saw. What's that mean? You're the saw. What happens if you're dull? Ineffective. You don't cut very well. So if you don't take time to take that saw and sharpen that, any of you ever use drill bits? Do you ever drill into metal or anything like that? Yeah. Does it take you a long time sometime? Yeah, because what do you have to do to those bits on a regular basis? You have to sharpen them. I remember the first industrial arts class I took in high school. Do you know what we did first? It was like, I'm here to build something. Let's go. You know what we did? We learned how to sharpen drill bits. And I thought, what? You just get the bit and you put it in, you drill. No, after a while, it doesn't drill. You know, right now I have a chop saw down in my basement. If I go down there with a piece of wood and I turn that saw on and start to cut it, you will smell smoke in my whole house. Why? The blade is dull. It's not cutting the board, it's burning the board. I need to sharpen that saw. That's the same thing with you. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not, taking time to sharpen your saw, to learn new things, to rest, to get, as a high school counselor, I had a lot of students that would graduate and go off to school, right? And you know how many of them came to me and said, Mr. Davis, when I get to college, I'm just going to study. I'm going to the library every day. I'm going to live in the library. I'm going to study all the time. And I said, well, you know what? I'll see you probably next year because you'll probably be home and you won't be going back. What? I'm going to work. But here's the thing. Life is not constantly doing one thing. And being successful at school is not studying all the time. It's not partying all the time either. It's doing things to refresh you and taking care of your responsibilities. One other story, and then we'll get into the meat of this. I had a student come to me, I've had happen more than once, and they said, I'm going to college next year. What can I do this summer to get ready? I said, oh, I got it. I got the perfect plan. Tell me what to do. Okay, first of all, sit down and look at tomorrow and divide it into 15-minute sections from, say, 6 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock at night, every 15 minutes. And then decide what you're going to do with that time and write it down. So what time are you going to get up? Well, you know, I don't have to get up anymore at a certain time. So I'm going to sleep till 9 o'clock. Put that down. 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, sleep. Okay? Well, then what? Well, then I'm going to eat breakfast. How long does that take? Oh, an hour. Okay, put down 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, breakfast. Then what? Well, I think I'll watch TV for a while. I said, okay. Put down TV. How long? Well, till noon. Okay, TV, 10 till 12. What are you going to do at noon? Well, I eat lunch. Hour? Yeah, 12 to 1, lunch. Then what are you going to do? Well, then I think I'll run downtown and see what my friends are doing. Okay, how long is that going to take? Well, I don't know, 2 hours, 1 to 3. Get your whole day set out like that. Then tomorrow, follow that schedule to the minute. Oh, okay. But what happens? Well, I don't have to get up at 9 o'clock, so I'm really going to sleep till 10 o'clock. And then I'll eat breakfast. I may sit at the breakfast table till 11 or 12, and then I think I'll eat lunch, and then I think I'll go back to sleep. Okay, there's your problem right there. All you have to do is follow that schedule to the point, to the exact time. Well, I don't want to. What's an adult? Especially accomplishing mundane but necessary tasks. Here's what the problem is. You can't control you. So when you get to college, guess what? You're not going to control you. You don't have to get up in the morning. We've experienced that with students. You know, they just sleep all day. We call them, we text them, we knock on the door for a while, and then we just say, hey, it's your life, not ours. This is the time that you are in charge of you. If you can't control you, you'll never be a successful individual or adult. Okay, next slide. So habit number 1, be proactive. Forward. It talks about your circle of influence. When we're proactive, we focus on efforts on our circle of influence, the things we can control. We work on the things that we can do something about. This allows us to expand our influence over time and create more choices and more opportunities. But when we're reactive, we get stuck focusing on our circle of concern, not our circle of influence. And our circle of concern are things that we have little or no control of. One of my favorite coaches, I'm an Alabama Auburn fan. One of my favorite coaches had a saying in his office, says, be concerned about the things you can do something about. Simply put, what are you concerned about? Well, I don't know, that other team is big. Stop. Can you do anything about their size? You know, short of going out and breaking their legs or something like Nancy Kerrigan, or, you know, that's an old reference. You won't know that one. It was an Olympic skater that didn't like the other one, so she broke her knee. So anyway, be concerned about what you can control. You can't control the circle of concern. But the interesting thing is when you focus on the circle of influence and take care of those things, you're actually, that will grow. That will become bigger, and you will get to a point where you can control more of the things that are in your circle of concern than you can right now. So what you can do right now is control you. If you're talking about your classes, it's to go to class. It's to pay attention. It's to follow through on the assignments. If you're in welding, it's to get in the booth and to weld and to weld and to weld and to take constructive criticism. Here's what you need to do better. So I know how to weld. Do you? Then why are you here? And if you think you do, then, well, let's go see if you do. Let's see if you can get a job. Let's see if you can get a national certification. Be concerned about what you can do something about. If it's being a CNA, if it's going into health occupations, find out what your options are. Pay attention, follow up, do the assignments as they're done. You can control that. You can't control anything else. That is being proactive. That is being ahead of what you are going to do each and every day by focusing on those things that are absolutely. So every time, ask yourself, is this something that I can do something about? And if the answer is, well, maybe, then it isn't. If it is yes, this is something you can do about. Next one. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. We've talked a little bit about that. What's your desired future? You begin with the end in mind means that you look out across the coming hours, days, weeks, months, and years with a clear vision of your desired destination, and then to proactively pursue that future. Now, that could change along the way, but that doesn't mean that you aren't being proactive. That doesn't mean that you aren't beginning with the end in mind. You can change that end from time to time. For those of you who are in high school, you probably had to choose a career pathway at some point. And probably that you're in the pathway you chose. But what you'll find out as you go along is that career pathways do tend to overlap. They're not necessarily just one pathway, but it's when you get into those and start to do these things that you find out what those options are. So if you're into something, well, say you're into welding, and you become a very good welder. Well, do you know what the next step is? It's called a certified welding inspector. It's called a welding instructor. Now, what that person does is they have that same engineering pathway, but they also have a human relations pathway because they work with people. So you find that there's a combination there, and that's kind of the goal, is to find what pathway you fit into or combination of pathways. Even if your vision for the future changes, having an end in mind for a meeting, project, or a lifetime gives you more clarity about where to start and how to adapt. There's no better time today than to decide what you want to be tomorrow. So you kind of start with right now, and then you start with what comes next. And as you go through right now, that what comes next may change or it may not, but you constantly adjust that. Do you know if you take a jet liner, a commercial airline, and they take off from California and they fly to New York City, they are off course over 90% of the time. Do you know that? You probably should know that. How many of you drive? Well, I'm not going to encourage you to do this, but think about this. When you leave and start up the highway, put your hands on the wheel and don't move them. What's going to happen? You're going to end up in the ditch. You're constantly making corrections. That airline is constantly making corrections in that path to New York. That's what we have to do. We have to constantly make those corrections, keeping the end in mind. They're still going to New York, but they're constantly adjusting that route. Okay, Keeper. Habit 3, put first things first. There are 4 quadrants in our time management. Quadrant 1 is necessities, things that have to be done, and they have to be done now. They are urgent and they are important. Then we have those things that are urgent, like needless interruptions, unnecessary reports. We call it putting out fires. You know, nobody wants to have a fire, and you don't usually plan the fire, but it pops up. And so when it does, that becomes something that is urgent, but it wasn't important until you had the fire. Irrelevant meetings, other people's minor issues. Do you need to get bothered by other people's issues? That's kind of a mental illness almost. Unimportant email talks, phone calls, status posts. I'm sure you never get these, but I constantly get these emails saying that my car warranty is out of date and that I need to make sure I renew this iCloud account for $29, or it's going to delete all my pictures. And it's like, no, it's not. Get rid of it. What do you do with those? You just get out of here. I don't even want you in here. That's the kind of thing that falls in quadrant 3. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but it's important. Proactive work, important goals, creative thinking, planning, prevention, relationship building, learning and renewal, recreation. Those are important, but they're not urgent. And then there's the things that are not urgent and not important. Those are the ones you really kind of want to get rid of. Trivial work, avoidances, excess relaxation, TV, gaming, internet, time wasting, gossip. Those are all things that just really destroy that ability to manage your time. We spend our time in one of four quadrants depending on the urgency and importance of what we're doing. And it's a constant challenge to make that decision. Is this important? Is this urgent? Is this important and necessary, or is this important and not necessary? Look at those things, because that helps you to actually manage your time, to put the first things first so that you can be effective in what you're doing right now. Next one. Think win-win. Okay, this is a little bit harder because we have that natural ability to defend ourselves. When somebody yells at you, what's the first thing you think? Show me physically. When somebody yells at you, what's the first thing that you think? Show me physically. Somebody, show me physically. Come on, you can do it. Somebody yells at you. Yeah, what do? Don't you? I don't care if it's a teacher. I don't care if it's your parents. I don't care if it's your boss. The normal reaction is, you're not going to pick on me. And so immediately, what happens in your head? You start putting up that same defense. It's not fist, but it's the same type of thing in your head. You immediately begin to draw in and focus on you. Think win-win simply means that it requires that we be both high in courage and high in consideration, and that we approach others with generosity and a sense of partnership. When we do that, when we demonstrate our investment in their interest and successfully advocate for our own needs, we build stronger, more trusting relationships. When somebody yells at you, the best way to defuse that is to come back and say, you want to say that again in a calmer, you maintain that calm sense. Or if you want to get really Rogerian, you reflect their feelings. I guess you're really upset with me. That really will either do one of two things. That will either bring them down, or they will get in your face. And you just come back again and say, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And you maintain that calm demeanor, because that helps them to de-escalate as well until they start swinging, and then you've essentially won. The win-win means to put yourself in their position, because why are they yelling at you? And if they're yelling at you because you've done something wrong, then admit it and try to get them to de-escalate. It takes a lot of courage to think win-win, but when you do think win-win, you actually come out on top even in their winning. Let me give you one example of this that has to do with employment. How many of you have heard of entrepreneurship? In your own words, tell me, what does entrepreneurship mean? What's that?
Doing more than $1 a month or just anything.
Okay. Anybody else? Working for yourself. That tends to be what people think of. Working for yourself. What do you think intrapreneurship means? Working for other people with the same goal and attitude you have to work for yourself. Now, what in the world does that mean? We have companies that do work for us here. Some of them have entrepreneurs that do the work. What I mean by that is they have an employee that has been with them, I can think of this one individual, been with them 10, 15 years. And he works for the company as though it's his company. By that, I mean he tries to figure out the best way to do this, the best way to maintain positive relationships with the customer, the best way to save them money and still meet the needs of the customer. He's thinking constantly of this business as though it's his own business. You say, why would I do that? Because he makes more money than anybody else in the business. Because the employer understands you are very important to my business. Now, would he ever want to own his own business? He could. But there's kind of a connotation when entrepreneurship that if you're an entrepreneur and I hire you, you're going to leave and go start your own business. Not necessarily, because some people that have that entrepreneurial attitude are entrepreneurs. They don't want to do that. They want to work for you. There is safety in working for somebody's company. There is risk in starting your own. And there may be a time to take that risk. But if you are successful and happy in what you're doing, work for that company like it's your company. Constantly try to make them better. Constantly come up with good ideas. That is a win-win employer. That's the kind of employer that you want to be, especially when you're starting out, because starting out new and starting your own company is highly risky. 80% of all new companies fail in the first 2 years all across the country. 80%. So, win-win. Next. Seek to understand before making yourself understood. This is difficult to do. This takes some practice. Go ahead, Kiefer. It's autobiographical versus empathetic listening. In other words, as you're listening, you're putting everything into your context, not into the other person. Empathy means putting yourself in that person's position. It's not apathy, it's empathy. You're trying to understand how they feel in what they're talking about. So in autobiographical, you're focusing strictly on you. So consequently, everything that's happening, you're filtering through your experiences, which may not be their experiences. So it makes it very hard to really understand if you're not looking at their experiences. When we listen autobiographically, we turn the other person's story into our story. We filter everything they say through our own experiences. Now, your parents said this to you sometime when you misbehave or you picked on a brother or sister. They said, well, how do you think they feel? You know, actually, most of us could, honestly, we could probably answer that question correctly because we've been in that position. We've been picked on. So how do you feel when that happens? Well, I feel like this. So that's how they feel. How does your employer feel when you do a bad job? You know, I liked, we had H&H Trailer down here talking to our welders this summer. And again, one of the things he talked about was attendance. And I thought he put it very well when he was talking to his students. He said, when you don't come to work, I don't hire somebody to take your place. So that day, instead of having 15 trailers manufactured, I had 14. That trailer that I didn't get manufactured was a $20,000 trailer. You cost me $20,000 that day you didn't come to work. Now take a person that does that 4 or 5 times a week, 4 or 5 times a month even. You say, well, 4 or 5 times, that's excessive, but 4 or 5 a month, that's 5 times 20, that's $100,000 you cost that company simply because you didn't show up. Wasn't because you put a bad weld on, you didn't show up. Put yourself in their position, and that's what they were trying to do. By the way, for those of you that are welding, H&H pays $26 an hour to start out. Guess what they do? If you come every day that week, when your salary's figured, it's $27 an hour. Next week, same way, $26. You're there every day, $27. It's $1 a week more. It's like, oh, you know what that is in a year? Anybody want to guess? We got any mathematicians that run through it real quick? What is that in a year? Take a guess. $1 an hour if you show up all week long. What is it ever? No, $2,000. Now just imagine at the end of the year, you sit there and say, okay, I got paid $26 an hour. And by the way, I ended up with a couple of $1,000 extra in my hand. What could you do with that? Yeah. But that's looking at their side of it, not just your side of it. Oh, I just don't feel good. Well, you just cost me $20,000. We filter everything they say through our own experiences, values, and perspective. When we listen empathetically, we create space for others to share their perspectives and emotions, and in the process, we build a deeper sense of connection and understanding. Hopefully, your employer does the same. Now, you can't guarantee that, but go back. What's the first one? Be concerned about the things that you can do something about. You can't do anything about your employer. But maybe by being empathetic, your employer may start to look at your side of it too. Okay, Kiefer. Habit number 6, synergize. I love synergy. I've seen it happen over and over and over again with our staff. I've seen it happen in my life in different organizations. And when you start to open up the conversation, when you start to open up your mind to other possibilities, and yet not hold back on what your thoughts are, because this doesn't mean sit there and don't say anything. This means take the situation and throw out what you're thinking. You ever done brainstorming? Yeah, brainstorming, you just throw out ideas. Number one rule in brainstorming is there's no wrong ideas. You say, well, I've heard some that I know they are, but you don't jump down somebody's throat and say, well, that's stupid. No, you throw it out there, because guess what happens when you throw that idea out there, even if it's a rotten one? Somebody sitting on their side room says, well, that's stupid, but you could do this that's kind of like that. And that generates another thought. That generates another idea. These are the steps to make synergy a habit. Ask, number 1, are we and the people around us willing to try for something new and different? Not my way or your way, but our way. Is there a better answer out there that is somewhere between what we're talking about, you and me? Determine what success looks like. What's our end in mind? That's one of the things you bring up to begin with. Where are you? Right here. Well, where do you want to be? I want to be here. Okay, now let's throw out some ideas. How do we get to there? And you start throwing those out, and the synergy is created by sharing those ideas. Create prototype and countertype ideas to explore and see what's possible. It is your idea that may create the best idea, and it may not be your idea, but it creates that synergy. And discover a third alternative to solution. So make sure that you're focused on the same outcome, but throw out those ideas. I always had a belief that when I worked for a school, they hired me because they thought that I knew something that was of value. So when I saw a situation and I thought, we're not handling that right, I would go to my supervisor and I would say, here's a concern I have. And here's what I think we need to be looking at. And one of the things that comes along with that is when you get done and you walk out the door, you're not upset if they didn't do what you said to do. Because I was not the gatekeeper. I call the gatekeeper the person that's at the top. I was not the principal. I was not the superintendent. I was the counselor. But I had information that I thought was valuable to the institution. So I would share that. And that takes some courage, but it also takes some constraint, because when you get done and they say, well, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this, we're still friends. I used to go to my superintendent sometimes, and one of the things that we would always talk about is this the best thing for the students? And so I would go in and say, I don't think this is the best thing for the students. I think we ought to do this. And sometimes he would look at me and say, John, I have to look at the budget. And my response was, I understand that. I don't, but I understand that. And so their decision was the decision. If it was right, great. If it was wrong, I went back in and said, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. But sometimes it was and sometimes it wasn't. But that doesn't stop you from putting in what you're thinking, if you understand, but I'm not the gatekeeper. So when the decision's made, we're still fine. If it works out that I was right, I'll feel good about that. But next time, maybe you build up some credibility. And next time, maybe they listen a little bit better. But I think that you've got to be willing to put out what you know. Otherwise, especially you're going into health sciences, do you know what they call doing medicine? What do they call that? practicing medicine. I love the medical model. You know why? Because it's like that airplane pilot flying from Los Angeles to New York. They're constantly correcting. You go to the doctor and say, I got some congestion here. Oh, well, we're going to run you through a CAT scan. We're going to do ultrasounds. We're going to treat you. This may be cancer. That's not what they do. What do? Say, well, let's look at your lungs. Let's listen to your, okay, I'm going to put you on some decongestant. I'm going to add it. Let's see how that works. And you come back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks and you say, worked. I'm cleared up. Great. That's what it was. Or you come back and say, still there. Okay, now we're going to the next level and the next level. But it takes a team to do that. One of the things I really admire about medicine that we don't do in education, when they get to work, they spend a significant amount of time teamwork. They sit down, they get the nurses, the doctors, I get all these people together and they go through this and they look at it and they come out with a plan. That's synergy and that's teamwork. I wish we could do that in everything, but we don't. But it's practicing because we don't always have the right answer and we need to just start systematically. It's a perfect example of beginning with the end in mind and working this up. Synergy is the best thing that you can offer to a company. Last one, sharpen the saw. You'll like this one. Achieve balance in your self-care means taking time, taking care of your body, your heart, your mind, and your spirit. All of those things are important because anytime any of those are out of control or out of connection, you're going to have problems. You go to work and you have not had any sleep, you're going to make mistakes. That's just the way it is. I had a student one time, I got 3 minutes. Student one time in my psychology class, we did experiments. She wanted to know what happened when she didn't sleep. What happens to her performance? So for a week, she did not sleep. Yeah, I'd probably get in trouble today for letting them do this. I mean, I didn't control it, but it challenged them. And then she came in and she did cognitive tests every day. She did journaling about her emotional state. It was really interesting because she just progressively went downhill and downhill fast, especially when she got past Wednesday. She was doing, when I say cognitive task, what's 4 and 8? What's 9 times 7? Just basic cognitive tasks. At the end of the week, she would sit there and you go, what's 3 and 6? What? What's 3 and 6? See what happens? Your body gives out. I did that for a week without eating. And I lost energy. I had to go up 3 sets of stairs to my office. I had to start stopping at the second story, going into the secretary's office and visiting with her a while, then going on up to the 3rd floor. I couldn't get up there. But more importantly, what really surprised me was after about Wednesday, I didn't care to eat. The first thing I thought is, oh man, I'll be hungry all the time. Oh, I was for the first couple days. By Wednesday, I didn't care to eat. You could have waved it in front of me and I said, I don't care, I don't want that. In fact, Friday night, my plan was to go home, that was the end of the week, have a pizza. Honestly, most of Friday, my biggest concern was, I don't know if I can eat it. Now that sounds weird, doesn't it? I'm not encouraging you to try that, but it's kind of interesting. You learn a lot about yourself. You got to take care of all parts of your body, all parts of you, in order to be an effective worker. You know, when you get out and you're on your own, you don't have to go to bed anytime. But it won't take you long to figure out that you want to go to bed on time because the next morning you got to get up and go to work. You know, our kids went to prom, stayed up all night. They thought it was a great deal. We had one rule. Come Sunday morning, you're going to do everything. You're going to do the same thing you do every week. You get up, you go to Sunday school and search. Dad, I just got in at 6 o'clock. Yep. And so after a while, you figure out, you know, I don't think it's all that great staying up all night. In fact, I was I was the sponsor, so a lot of times I had to stay up with them. I dreaded the years I had to go to prom because I had to stay up all night. Man, I was glad. When I retired, I thought, one thing, I'm never going to have to stay up all night. Brad? Yeah, yeah.
Well, basically, if I don't get like 3 hours of sleep, my body just decides to get sick.
Right. That's the other thing. You start getting sick. You don't eat right. You don't sleep. Now you get sick. And guess what happens when you're sick? You don't go to work. So all these things work together. All these things work together. All right. I think that's it. We've got these handouts for you. Let me tell you a little bit. If you're sitting there saying, man, that's a lot. This is a study that you do over, 4 or 6 weeks. And the very first thing you do is something that's called, setting up your standards. What is your mission as a person? It is an excruciatingly painful, emotionally painful experience to do that, because you really have to look at yourself and what you like about yourself, what you don't like about yourself. And all of us have things that we don't like about ourselves, and it's hard to look at those. And then coming up with what is your mission in life. If you ever get a chance to go through 7 Habits, do it. We've got a handout, little card back there, Sandra. You want to get those cards and hand them out when they get out? They're back in the booth. And so, maybe as you go through from time to time, you can look at that. You can ask yourself, am I being proactive? Am I taking control of things I can control? Am I really, beginning with the end in mind? Am I really working toward something, and am I adjusting that course? Am I putting first things first? Is this something I really can't do anything about? Push it aside. Are you thinking win-win? Not just how do you succeed, but how's that person next to you succeed? That's really important in health sciences, because you can't be in there wanting to win when that patient's life is depending on you. Seek to understand, learn to synergize, and take care of yourself. Okay?
Your quick assignment for me, I would like for you to start a portfolio. It'll take you about 5 minutes. I have 3 different options on here. I'll give you this at the end. You need it by Sunday evening if you keep in you're going to put your resume, all the stuff in there. You'll have it all together. That way you have it in one spot. Okay?
We had a graduate from April, got a call from an employer. He said, we hired this graduate of yours that graduated in April. And I thought, oh. And I just want you to know, we'll take 9 more just like this. That's what we want to hear. We want you to be successful. Anything we can do to help you, let us know, okay? Get your handouts and go on. Go back to class or go home.